Hi, I'm Melita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. Today I will be talking about my April 2022 TBR, or my Magical Readathon Aurelium classes. So, the Magical Readathon is a readathon that has been hosted by G from the Book Roast. Originally, it was following a fan base. Now, she has created it, recreated it. It's completely creative and awesome. I've talked about it before. Basically, we create our own characters. We have taken a novice path to figure out more about our characters, about our backgrounds for these characters, and then we recently had a mini readathon in March to figure out our conduit and for as well as based off our guilds, special little things. So for instance, I am part of the Order of the Crescent Guild, and I had to figure out who my animal companion was. So that I will update you in my March wrap-up. Now though, however, in April, we are getting to go to our first semester of Aurelium, which is a magical school where we are figuring out our powers. I will leave G's announcement down in the description down below if you want to check that out. I'm sure that I highly suggest checking it out. She's put a lot of work into this and I'm really impressed with it. I'm super excited for this. For April, it's our first semester, or what G is calling the spring equinox, and that's how we're gonna go, and we're gonna have another one in August. So based off what we are going to read for this equinox is gonna determine what we are reading for the August equinox. So I love the detail and just intricacies of these readathons. They're so fun. We are figuring out our callings. G has posted a book essentially of 22 callings that we are able to choose from. Not all 22 are available for everyone. Some of these callings are restricted to particular guilds, but I'm still just so excited for it. And it was 22 is such a huge, I did not expect that many to be able to choose from, and so it was difficult to choose one. There was Mind Mender that I was really looking at, which is essentially someone who helps get jinxes, curses, or backfire of magic out of someone's head. It not only has to do with magic, but is mentality of being able to help people with PTSD, anxiousness, etc. And I really like the thought of this particular calling in particular, because I really like the thought of it, particularly after finding out what my animal companion is. And of course there's others like Beastmaster and Necromancer. So there's a lot to choose from, and what I ended up going with was not only based off what I was interested in, but also what classes I'd have to take. So with each calling, there's a set number of classes which correspond to reading prompts for the month, and based off those classes and reading prompts is what I ended up going off of. And there's something that, as much as I wanted to be a mind bender, there was something that kept popping up that I was just I knew I was gonna have trouble with. Not because I couldn't find a book necessarily for it, I know I could easily. It's just I wasn't feeling the book that if I had to choose, and I want to be able to finish my TBR this month, because a little spoiler alert, didn't so much adhere to that for March, and January and February was no better in terms of sticking to my TBR, and I would really just like to be able to. And so I feel like this month, April, will be the month that I can actually stick to my TBR. I thought that this readathon was actually going to make me be a little over ambitious, but actually I'm liking the way it's going. So for my calling, I am going to be a Master of Elements. This is pretty self-explanatory in that my character will have to study and master earth, wind, fire, and water. And for an earthling elf, I feel like it's very appropriate. They're known to be associated with harmony and nature, but there is a duality to them. There can very much be destruction and chaos. And this one in particular is for the Order of the Crescent Guild. So And the key traits are attentive, confident, nature-loving, and spontaneous. Now that I know what calling I'm going after, time to look at the syllabus. There are 14 classes being offered for the spring equinox, each one having their own course focus, and in turn being associated with the reading prompt that we will have to read the books in order to pass the classes in the month of April. So let's read the syllabus. That's always like the most boring part of, it can be one of the most boring parts of the beginning of the semester, but I am always kind of excited about it too, because then I get to see what we get to learn about throughout the semesters particularly. So, welcome students. It is our privilege and pleasure to host you at Aurelium as you make it your home. We hope you have an excellent semester filled with delicious learning and new friendships. Please find the spring equinox syllabus below. Okay, my first class that I'll have to take to be a Master of Elements is Elemental Studies, obviously. So for Elemental Studies, the course focus for the spring equinox is basics of aerodynamics, and for that I'll have to read a book that's under 100 pages. For that, I'm going to be choosing Small Night and the Anxiety Monster. Yes, this is a children's book. Yes, I count it for my Goodreads goal. So yeah, this is real, like less than 100 pages. I'm sure, I don't think it counts the page numbers, but I'm sure I can look it up and it'll be less than 100 pages. This is written and illustrated by Manka Kasha. I hauled this book not too long ago. I feel like it's been within the last couple of months, and I've been really interested in reading it, and it's been really hard not to just pick it up because I've had some little bouts of anxiety through the last couple of months, and part of that, I believe, had to do with caffeine, so I've been trying to cut out coffee. I thought this would be a very good one. It's also great because it also works for the Buzzwordathon word for the month of April, or theme, which is little and big or similar type words, so small night would work for this. The next class I'll have to take is Shape-Shifting, and for Shape-Shifting, the course focus is Formation Claws. And for the reading prompt, it's Creature with Claws on the Cover. This one, I thought I was being very clever for this one, in all honesty, because there's a nonfiction I also recently hauled that I would like to get to, and that is Life Between the Tides by Adam Nicholson. There is a crab on the cover with claws. So I thought I was being very clever, mostly because in the Discord group for the Magical Readathon, I see people asking about bird talons or like cats or like these other things, and I'm just like, oh, there's a crab on this one. This is perfect. So yeah. So like I said, this is a nonfiction. I don't know too much about it, but it basically has to do with I would assume tides. In Life Between the Tides, Adam Nicholson investigates one of the most revelatory habitats on Earth. Under his microscope, he sees a prawn's head become a medieval helmet, and a group of winkles transform into a Dickensian social scene, with mollusks munching on Stilton and glancing at their pocket watches. Or rather, is a winkle more like Achilles, an ancient hero, throwing himself towards death for the sake of glory? For Nicholson, who writes with scientific rigor and a poet's sense of wonder, the world of the rock pools is infinite and as intricate as our own. So it's a nonfiction about tide pooling, which I absolutely love. Tide pooling is one of my favorite things to go do, particularly with my partner. So next class I'll have to take is Animal Studies, and for that the course focus is Ways of a Pegasus, and the reading prompt is to read a quick read. And for this, it's going to be another book that will fit into the buzzword theme for April, and that is Little Feasts stories by Jules Archer. So I would imagine this should be a relatively quick read. The font is relatively big and it's spacious, and it's also less than 100 pages at 81 pages. So, and it's been one I've been wanting to read for a bit. I absolutely enjoy this cover. My next class is astronomy, which the course focuses basics, asteroids and comets, reading from top of your to be read list. This one I had meant to get to in March. It was not on my March TBR, but it's one that I had most anticipated and had come out during March, and I was not able to get to it, and that is Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. It's a ghost ship, a salvage crew, unspeakable horrors, the ultimate haunted house story in space, is what Alma Katsu, author of The Deep, blurbed it as. Basically, we are following a crew in space, a salvage crew in space, and they haven't had the best of luck, and they are debating on turning back to go to Earth, even though they really don't want to, when they stumble upon a spaceship that has been lost since its maiden voyage. What they find is the Aurora, a luxury space liner that ended up disappearing upon their maiden voyage 20 years ago. A salvage claim like this would set this crew up for life, but when they get there, there's writing on the walls and whispers in the dark. So this is horror. I'm really excited for this. Next is Conjuration, and course focus is Conjuring of Light. Yes, is Conjuring of Light, and the reading prompt is a source of light on the cover. I'm counting this. I'm hoping it counts, but this is a rollover from March because I wasn't able to get to it, and that is Fevered Star by Rebecca Rowan. I would think that this is a source of light, right, on the cover. If you know the story and like who this could potentially be, then yes, possibly, maybe. This is an advanced reader's copy I was so kindly gifted from Kim, but from the book lady, the Native Book Lady Warrior. Thank you so much, Kim. This is the second book in, I can't remember the series name, but it's the second book to Black Sun by Rebecca Rowan, a fantasy based in pre-colonial Americas that we follow several different perspectives from as we ultimately lead up to an event that has been foretold. There is political deception, political intrigue. Yeah, it was very interesting. I really liked it, and I would very much like to get to this in April as it comes out April 19th. So I would like to be able to get a review out for you. And then finally, yes, is Restoration. And the course focus is Cure Wounds. The reading prompt is book featuring healers. So I don't think I ever got a response. So I kind of got a response, but not really, in terms of what healer, with how the term healer was supposed to be applied. Like, obviously, books about doctors, nurses, therapists make sense to me, but it also seems very obvious. So I'm gonna do another March rollover and hope that it works, because like the way I'm thinking is not so much a human healer, though ultimately it does end up affecting us eventually, but more in terms of like landscape or plant healing. So for that, I'm talking about fresh banana leaves healing indigenous landscapes through indigenous science. So this is by Dr. Jessica Hernandez, and an indigenous environmental scientist breaks down why Western conservationism isn't working and offers indigenous models informed by case studies, historical overviews, and stories that center the voices of Latin American women and land protectors. So I don't think this would be considered healing in the terms of like a Western sense, but I would consider it healing like in terms of a healer being in here, through my perspective of terms of like Dr. Jessica Hernandez is trying to heal the landscape of indigenous landscapes. It's also like a source of healing for me because I'm hearing another indigenous voice. So that's what I'm going with. I don't think that the rules are very restrictive, because ultimately I think what G ended up saying was just like do what makes sense to you. That's what I'm going with and hoping it works out, because that is something that I would really like to read and get to. So that is my April TBR. It's relatively short comparatively to my other TBRs for the month. Notice that I don't have a book of the month, a couple book of the month books in there like I would like to do. I have a couple Indigenous books in there, so that's a plus. I have a couple of books that work for Buzzwordathon, also a plus. In terms of anything else I'm able to get to for the month, I hope to be able to get to more, but ultimately I'm just gonna leave it as is for right now. If I get to more, perfect. If I don't, no, they still read my TBR, so that's what I'm going with. If you're participating in the magical readathon, I would love to know what your calling is and what classes, what you're choosing for your own prompts. Please leave that in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope that you are in the mental mindset to enjoy your reading, and I will talk to you again soon in another video. Chew.